ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies. Welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day. Episode 47, and we have Brandon Stevens in the studio with us. He is a Oneida Nation Council Member, as well as he was a delegate for Bernie Sanders at the Democratic National Convention. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And we are going to be talking about something pretty intense that's happening right now in North Dakota, Cannonball, North Dakota, to be specific. You have some connections out there.
I was born in Garrison, North Dakota, and I have family in Standing Rock, and I went to school out in Bismarck, North Dakota for a few years, and so I know the area pretty well. I have a lot of friends down there, so it's a very close and near-dear situation in my heart.
And so you've been to Standing Rock, and when we talk about this, we're discussing what's happening with Dakota Access Pipeline and the tribe in Standing Rock in North Dakota, and I guess the conflict that's there right now. I know they're discussing this as they're protesting, but they consider themselves water protectors, correct?
Correct. They're basically on the idea that they're protecting 7 million people and their drinking water that live downstream. You've noticed that many of the major cities that are on the Missouri River have signed resolutions of support for their efforts, and that's why they say they're protecting the environment, and they're taking a stand on saying that we need to rethink on our fossil fuel usage and how we want to be sustainable into the future generations.
And so this was actually proposed initially 10 miles north of Bismarck, North Dakota, and that was in 2014, I believe. So that was initially proposed there, and then they, for some reason, denied the request to do that, and the reason was because they were afraid of contamination. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so are we sure? Is that do we have anything in writing? I've been trying to find something. It was just basically the city of Bismarck said they won't comment on that at all. But what was the determining factor, and why is it different for Standing Rock? What do you believe about that?
Well, you got the power in numbers, especially with the governor's mansion and the state capitol being in Bismarck, North Dakota, and you have, a large population, and then you have the major concern of the spoilage of their drinking water, and then so you move it north of the reservation, half a mile north of the reservation borders, and so you create the narrative to say, all right, we're not on your reservation, we're on private land, we're going to zigzag all the way through private lands, and we're going to skirt through the process because we understand it might be a political fight. So we're going to skirt half a mile north of the reservation. And so that's how they avoid all the political backlash and say, well, we're not even on your reservation. But not understanding that there's ceded territory where in the Fort Laramie Treaty that they were allotted a certain amount of land, and that's within the treaty lands. And so there's sacred sites based on the treaty because they're, the Great Sioux Nation, really populated the entire Dakotas basically. And so what it really did is that Fort Laramie Treaty outlined the ceded territories on where they land, which they ceded territory. And what ceded territory really means is that the tribes retain certain rights in the specific areas. And so sacred sites, hunting and fishing rights, and those types of things that are allotted through those treaties.
Okay, so backtrack, and let's talk about the timeline. So no one contacted Standing Rock Tribe? Nobody's discussed that with them? I mean, they're saying that Dakota Access is saying that they came in and they began discussions and then that nobody showed up to oppose it at that time. Is that true?
Well, what we're talking about is low-level public hearings and a couple meetings in the basement of public buildings and just showing plans. And so when a public meeting is basically just saying, this is what our plan is, we need some input. And what the difference is, what the tribe is really saying is that there is a consultation process, and there's official consultation executive order by the president in 2000. It's 13175 executive order on tribal consultation, what that really outlines what tribal consultation really means. And since tribes have a specific designated relationship with the government, it's a nation-to-nation government. And what that tribal consultation process really is saying is that it needs to be meaningful. And so we don't want note takers in the meeting. We want someone with discretion, someone with power to be at the meetings to really talk about the issues and see how we can really come to an understanding. If there's an impasse, how do we get past that?
And that's quite, this project is quite a project. It's over 1,000 miles of pipeline. We're talking 450,000 barrels of oil a day will come through that. So that is the issue. Can any of that spill over and contaminate water? Can they actually say with certainty that that can't happen? Have they given any statement at all?
Well, the company really said that they are building deeper underneath the lake. They have a thicker pipeline going through. They have all the safety measures. They have an on and off switch on both sides of the lake. They're taking a lot of safety precautions on that. But when you're entering in the area of fracking and these earthquakes coming, Kansas and Oklahoma, they're earthquakes based on fracking. And so you have a lot of earth movements. And so those are the concerns. What really troubled Bismarck is that if that were to happen up there, Standing Rock is saying, and we're all saying, that they have the infrastructure built for any bigger disasters on how to mitigate any spillage or leakage into the Missouri River. Standing Rock is a small reservation. They don't have a lot of money, and they don't have the infrastructure that really to protect anything that would happen, any immediate action that they would have.
And they don't necessarily have the resources to fight this as well.
Correct.
Exactly, which is interesting to me because that's possibly why they went there in the first place. I lived in North Dakota as a child. I was there from 6th grade until I was a freshman in college. And I remember traveling around the state. I was, on a basketball team. And I remember thinking, there's just so much space. There's so much land here. It's a beautiful state, but the population is, it's quite small. Why the hell are they not going somewhere else? Why are they there? What is it about that specific spot? Now, that's not something that I'm aware of. Have you heard anything about that? Like, why is that the trail right there through that?
I don't necessarily know why the trail was going in that direction. I know the Keystone and the Sandpiper pipeline went up to the northern portion along the Canadian border, and that was stopped based on action by local people and getting organized, and that was stopped. And so I don't know if they avoided that situation, but they came down. What the pipeline really did was to avoid all of the federal permitting processes is purchase as much private land along the pipeline so they could skirt a lot of the permitting process. And so what the other issue was with the consultation process is almost half of the project was almost finished by the time it got to Standing Rock Reservation. And so that's why the U.S. government has pulled back and said this consultation process needs to be looked at, because, for one, it's not fair for the tribe to have to come in, and what is it really going to mean if the project is almost half finished, and then we have to consult with them? What does that mean? Are we really just going to change the course? Is there something really going to happen? And then on the other side as well, a corporation coming in, build half the pipeline and then have it stopped. And so that's what the government really looking at, is saying, how can we make this consultation process better, so we're not, wasting resources of a company, and then really patronizing a tribal consultation in their sovereignty by saying, well, this is half done. What do we do now?
How close are some of these homes to this to the proposed piece of pipeline? How close are they?
Let's see. The reservation border is, let's say about a half a mile, and then there's Cannonball just on the other side of the Cannonball River over a hill. I'd say, just a little more than a half a mile.
But it's about being close to the water, though, right, Brandon?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what do you want to see happen, or what does the movement want to see happen? I'm an outsider that kind of came to this late, so I'm confused as to what action we really want to see happen here.
First and foremost, a lot of the protectors are saying, is the big picture things. Like, we need to look towards sustainable energy. We need to look to wind, solar, and then look at also our carbon footprint, reducing the need for fossil fuels.
Do you want to see it stopped completely?
And
tossed out.
Yeah, and so as tough as that may be sound, because we do need, our society is really built around the usage of fossil fuels, and it's really structured that way. So we can't just ride a bike to work anymore. And so that's, there's a medium in there somewhere. It's like, how do we start having a conversation about moving towards that?
So where do you think that medium is?
The medium, I really think is looking at the big corporations. They're profiting big time on this, and the basic premise is, we're going to lower your price per gallon, and then so to the consumers, like, I can't really afford to go back to almost $4 to $5 a gallon anymore.
Right.
We have to fight for this pipeline to get built, and so that's where the polarized discussion comes, because hey, it's going to directly affect my pocketbook. And so looking at, first and foremost, where can we reroute this? If it's back to North Bismarck, and I'm speaking for myself in this situation and not Standing Rock, is just if you can, somewhere that any disaster can be mitigated by a city like Bismarck that has the infrastructure to respond immediately to.
So it has to cross water at some point, though, right? So we can't completely eliminate the possibility of a spill in water, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So in terms of mitigation, do you think it'd be acceptable to have a fund set up to be ready to tackle any disasters, or where do you think, because it has to cross water, where can we come to a happy medium?
Yeah, I think that's an option as well, is moving the pipeline, but looking at also.
That sounds really expensive, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. But there's also other ideas that, the reasons that we don't do rail or road is because it's dangerous. There's spillages and everything. Is looking at the federal requirements for that as well. Is that maybe the tonnage, the gallons that are being transported needs to be looked at it to prevent some of those spills from happening. And so there's other ways you can look at it to make rail and road safer. And so those are another means to say, all right, we need to look at that, just to say that this is a problem. We could have to completely avoid it without looking at that issue. So
there's a lot of discussion actually out there about the surveillance state of affairs happening in North Dakota. That's what, a lot of energy is coming from that. And it's interesting. There's helicopters flying. They have, a ton of law enforcement out there. Some of these people have come from Wisconsin. There's rumor that, we're not paying for that. Dakota Access is. So the corporation is literally paying for these law enforcement to be there. And the stuff that's happening, like some of the incidents that you hear about that are happening, the snatch and grab, right? That's something that is literally happening. If you just happen to be on a public roadway and you're going to drive by, they're pulling people over. They're so paranoid. What do they think these people are going to do exactly to this land? Why is this so intense? What do you feel about that?
Well, first, the state of North Dakota is paying for it, not the company. And so that's another issue that we're talking about is we have a state-funded law enforcement that are really protecting the pipeline. And so the state of North Dakota just went through $6 million in emergency funding. They exhausted $6 million through this campaign, and they just
Protecting the pipeline from their own citizens.
Protecting the pipeline, yes, correct.
Wow.
And and they just recently asked for $4 million extra to help because the $6 million went so fast. And you look at the spending of North Dakota and how they instituted that National Guard roadblock. And so that cost a lot of money, and there was no real use for it. And so,
do you know for a fact that Dakota Access isn't giving any of that money to them?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that it's.
I think it's almost worse if they're not. if my tax dollars are going to stop me from protesting something that I have a legal right to protest, that baffles my brain.
What is their reasoning with that?
Wow. Well, they're saying they're enforcing property rights of the individual because a lot of that, the majority of that property is private lands, and so if the protesters are going on the land, they're saying they're trespassing. But now, recently, over the last couple of weeks, as they've been tagging on rioting onto their charges, and so basically they're trying to scare them away to say, all right, we're going to tag a felony charge on you of rioting, inciting riots. And so it's really trying to suppress those who are on the front line to say, all right, we're going to jack up these charges and put you away for doing what you feel is right.
And you were there.
Yep.
And what is that like? What was it like?
The front line is a lot different than the camp. The camp activities, there's kids playing, there's games, there's social events. And my purpose when I go there is I help bring supplies to the camp to make sure that they're sustainable. We helped a couple organizations, 2 tribes and an organization, bring 65,000 pounds of timber that would help them with their fires through the winter. And so I kind of coordinated a lot of things. I didn't feel necessary to go to the front lines because there's people that were designated to go and be on the front lines, where I stayed in the back and coordinated other things for the camp.
I just don't understand that. What do they think these people are going to be doing? What are they going to do if they would cross that line? What are they going to do? Set it on fire? What do they think is going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's where when Dakota Access Pipeline, the corporation came in and they brought in the dogs. And so there was that interaction when they had dogs, and that reminded you of the civil rights era where they brought dogs and they were sicking them on the African-American civil rights activists. And so this is that, just a blast from the past to say.
Is it under active construction right now? Or has construction halted? Like what's the situation?
Construction is still going on right now.
Okay.
On October 10th, after the U.S. District Court denied the injunction for the pipeline work to continue while Standing Rock's lawsuit was going forward, the 3 agencies, Department of Interior, Department of Army, and Department of Justice, issued a joint statement saying that we're going to not issue the permit for the company to burrow under the lake until further notice, until we review the consultation process. And so we wish, or we offer, or we hope that Dakota Access Pipeline doesn't construct on 20 miles north, east and west of the lake. And so that was just a voluntary. If you volunteer, you can do it. You don't have to do it, but we won't give you that permit to burrow under the lake.
So the president has announced that they're going to be looking at this a lot closer in a few weeks. They're going to he said we'll let it play out for a little bit and see what happens. How do you feel about that? What do you think he should be a little bit stronger on this right now? What do you think about what he's saying?
What's supposed to play out? The lawsuit or the construction? What are we waiting for? Because I think everybody'd be happy with some sort of resolution, right?
Yeah, I think that's correct. I don't honestly think it's tied to a lot of different things. It's tied to the elections. Hillary hasn't taken a strong stance for. She's taken a very ambiguous stance on the pipeline.
Have you heard anything from Donald Trump on the pipeline?
Oh, he said build it.
Oh yeah.
He has 100,000. I think he has interest in the Energy Partners, Energy Transfer Partnership company. So he has a monetary interest in it.
So Donald Trump will profit from this.
Yes.
So so he has a conflict of interest, but it's publicly disclosed, right? I mean, we all know that now.
Yeah, we had to dig it out, yeah.
Yeah, he's so worried about transparency, isn't he?
Well, I'm not saying he was transparent, but we all know that now. So like whatever his opinion is, you have to take that.
Yeah, what we're worried about is because the police force has become militarized, and they have the use of MRAD.
Aren't there Humvees out there as well?
The mine resistant.
Yeah, see, that just seems unnecessary. And
are civilians actually supposed to be policed by the military necessarily in a situation like this? Is that actually okay?
I think
no, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
Right.
It's Obama has said in the past, it's like, the militarization of the police force should not be used against American citizens. And so that's exactly what they're doing. They're using those LRADs, those really piercing sounding weapons, basically. And they got two of them. They're just firing them right at, the front line.
And what are the protesters what are the water protectors doing? What are they doing to receive this treatment?
They're just holding the line.
Nobody can give me any sort of explanation of what they're doing. They're just standing there, probably chanting, yelling, supposedly praying. There's a lot happening, but what are they firing guns? Are they, is there anything happening?
No, they really just hold the line and they pray and they set up the camps to stop where the pipeline is going to cross. And what they really do is there's people there to say, all right, as much anger and emotion that comes out of it, there's people there at the front line saying, all right, don't yell, don't throw anything. And they're constantly reminding them, even though the emotions really run high, and they're just squirting them, with.
And how many people are we talking about with the water protectors? How many people are on that line? What'd you say?
Anywhere from 100 to 300 people. They come and go. There's direct actions that happen daily, and so that number rises and falls. But what they really do is just hold the line and just say, we're here peacefully, we're here in prayer, and we're going to stand up to you. It's just really just a sign of saying we've been pushed so much, over the last 500 years, and this is the time to stop, and we're going to fight back, and that's just by being who we believe we are, is just a prayerful, peaceful people.
And the military, police, I guess they're standing there just waiting for something to happen. I mean, how many of those people are there?
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of pictures there. It just shows, probably about 50 to 100 of them. They're just full riot gear.
Did you say 5,200?
50 to 100.
Oh, I think 5,200. 50 to 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they'll hold their line, and they have a SWAT vehicle. They have that MRAD, the big military. It looks like Kuwait, or Afghanistan. And they're full riot gear. They have rubber.
So I'm having a
bullets.
hard time understanding that. And I know that you're in favor of the water rights, so I recognize that you have an opinion on the matter, but as Americans, I think people want to support police forces, and and some of these militarization issues. I think some people are of two minds when it's in an urban area, but this is not the case here. They're not protecting anyone from anyone else, right? I mean, they're protecting.
It's a huge power grab. They're trying to make a statement.
I'm so confused as to. Why can't we just have like one or two people like making sure that nothing gets out of hand?
Yeah, I guess that's the major question is why do they have to be so militarized, and dressed full riot gear? They got they've been shooting the protectors over the past few days, about a week, with the rubber bullets, and they just have the canisters of pepper spray just dousing them, just continue to douse them.
To me, that's a violation of due process. They haven't committed any illegal acts other than perhaps trespassing.
Yep. Yeah.
and usually the penalty for trespassing isn't pepper spray and water.
But they know that that the resources are not there to rally, to organize. They're relying on the rest of the country, possibly some other places in the world, to really come to their rescue.
Yeah, and this is the type of thing that really happens across the U.S. and then now it's just become so polarized with social media, and now we're getting national media out there to really kind of highlight the things that have been going on. And this is just the highlight to say, hey, you have a smaller police department in their actions coming to light, where sometimes we would assert certain things and say, well, the police are here to protect us. We're going to back them up because we know they're putting their lives on the line, and they got to go home to families and too. And we do really understand that. But in a lot of cases, these are the things that are happening that are illegal actions. They're shooting down drones, and FFA has ruled that say that's an illegal action to shoot down a drone. And so they're doing these things and finding out in the back, rooms to say, hey, we're doing some illegal things. And now because they're arresting people, I think it was 140 people they arrested the other day, they had to use dog kennels. And so they herded them into dog kennels, and they put numbers on them to really thinking back to the Holocaust and how they had the numbers on them.
So who had drones out? The protesters?
Yep.
Okay, and they were doing what with the drones?
The protectors really had the drones just to really document what was going on, to document everything, and so that's where you see Amy Goodman go out there, and she was arrested, and she had the writing charges on there too, and they were eventually dropped. And so what they're really doing is targeting specific people. They're targeting the documentation of the events happening. And so,
what sort of weapons were on these drones? They were performing drone strikes on the military.
I guess the weapons would be considered to them would be video.
I don't think that's what was happening.
Ridiculous. No. Like, what's a drone going to do to people in armored vehicles? And
yeah.
Is there any sort of ordinance? Is there something in that area that says you can't have them? I mean, we have them in Green Bay. Is there something out there?
Well, you have to register them with the FAA now.
You just have to register them, and then FAA, has said that drones are considered, unmanned aircraft, and they should not be shot down because they could damage.
Which I think is ridiculous that they have to register. But
yeah.
But they have cameras, is what you're saying. They were capturing footage of what was happening. Okay, so this mindset of what's happening there doesn't necessarily, it's not isolated, right? This isn't just an issue in Cannonball, North Dakota. It's something that has been happening for a while, but now you said, you had talked with me earlier that you feel like this is now there's attention being brought to it because it's, an issue and there's a lot of money involved. Isn't that great when we pay attention when there's a lot of money involved? That's our country's state of affairs right now. So what is it that you'd like to say about that? Because I feel like that's a message that, I think people need to hear. And we had some of it happening in Green Bay this time last year with some tribal land in the city of Green Bay and Hobart having, a dispute about that. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I guess it becomes the level of media and what is available for people to, I guess, absorb. And so you can't get all of this into one article. You can't get all of this into one, sit down. There's so much that goes into it. So the relationship with Oneida and Hobart and Green Bay and Howland Land and the Trust, people don't understand the process that we are afforded as a special designation as a tribal government with sovereignty. We're the only group that's in the Constitution. And so we're specifically written in the Constitution where treaties are the supreme law of the land. Trade and intercourse will be designated by the federal government, and India is not taxed. That's all in the Constitution if you read that in the Constitution, if you take a look at it. And so those things, they're not taught in school. And so people become 18, they get their master's degree, they get their PhDs, they get their bachelor's degrees, never learning that part of tribal governments. And so they become this intellectual and they say, all right, I know stuff, but I don't know that. So that means it's probably false or
as long as no one calls me out on it, it's fine.
Correct, yeah. And so we're less than 2% of the population nationwide. And so we don't have a bully pulpit. We don't have someone out there speaking on behalf of us because, the members of Congress, our majority are white males. And so we don't have any representation in Congress, and so we have to go through the consultation process. We have to fight these avenues to get on the mainstream media, in which it makes it so difficult for us to get our issues out there. And so in this relationship with Hobart and Green Bay, as far as land of the trust, people don't understand it because they think they know all there is to know about tribes.
And they don't necessarily realize that just because you were tax exempt, you were paying service fees for services that you were receiving. The city was receiving revenue
Correct.
from you.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a big topic. I think we're gonna have to have you back on for that.
Okay, definitely. Yeah.
Because we're just about out of time, and so with the pipeline again, what is the claim that this was an illegal process by the company that did this? Do you just feel like they weren't nice about it and didn't consult, or do you feel like it was illegal?
I feel it was illegal when the consultation process is broken, because you don't want to have an entire project that stretches across 4 states not consulted with in the very beginning, not when you just got into the reservation, northern reservation boundaries, and understanding that the company probably, they might not know about the consultation process and what it takes. And President Obama in 2009 reissued a statement regarding the consultation process, because agencies have different processes on how they see consultation. And so it's not unilateral across all agencies. And so that's another issue that we're trying to work on, to say this should be something across the board, that every agency does consultation the same way.
So really they came in and they just wanted to do what they needed to do, and they just hoped that the least amount of people would notice and the least amount of resistance. And now this is not the case. And so they're sending out, they're being very unreasonable. If they really wanted to do this and have respect for the process in general, they wouldn't need to have the surveillance state. They wouldn't need to have, the power grab. They would be listening to the people of Standing Rock.
And one of the main things that I haven't really touched upon is more so the sacred sites. And so that's where those NAGPRA, National Appropriation, that act, NAGPRA really protects sacred sites and burial sites. And so that's one of the main issues that Standing Rock really has. It's, there are burial sites out there. So it's like going out to Arlington Cemetery out in DC and saying, we're consulted with you guys, and we're going to bury through.
Yeah, I'm sure that would happen.
Yeah. And so those are the kind of issues that we deal with, is because sometimes we're seen as less than in some of these issues, like, those are our ancestors. Like, no, these are our grandpas. These are grandpas, great grandpas.
Well, that's what corporations like to do. They like to go to places like that, Flint, right? I'm not even quite sure they have clean water right now.
Alabama.
After everything, Alabama. So that it's perfect. That's what they want. They want least resistance. They want people with the least amount of resources. They want to do what they need to do to get the money as fast as they can.
And I guess one parallel too I want to leave with is just, the Bundys, out Oregon, and how they were dealt with in their situation when they had an armed takeover of a federal building. They, were met with handshakes, and of course one of them was killed after he ran through a roadblock and pulled a weapon on.
So they all had guns.
Yeah, they all had guns, armed to, armed to.
White men and their guns. Can't have enough of those around.
Yeah, and so we look at the parallel. Yeah.
Anyway.
We look at the parallel in that and how that issue was handled, and then how this issue is handled, and you got full militarization of a police force, all their surveillance and their using of pepper spray, rubber bullets and an LRAD, military vehicles. And we look, where is the consistency in how you deal with certain groups?
It's not there. There's a huge contrast to what's happening, which is, I think, why it's gained so much attention, why there is so much energy around it. And, people are I know, I have friends that are going out there in the next 2 weeks. I hope they dress warm because it's cold.
Yeah.
It's a very open and cold area. Thank you so much for coming on. It's really important information. I'm really glad that we're able to get that out there.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Brandon. We'll have you back on to talk about those other, the Hobart Oneida issues.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that wraps up Political Radar episode number 47. For show notes, you can go to politicalradar.com/47. To get episodes, you can go to iTunes and Stitcher and the Google Play podcast thing that they have. And it would be awesome for you to join us in the Political Radar community on Facebook. I'm sure we're going to have more things to say about this over the next few weeks and months. And feel free to contact me on Twitter. I'm Elliot C on Twitter. I'm Elliot on Twitter. I'm Elliot C on Facebook.
I'm at Rhonda. I'm at Sitnicow on Twitter, and you messed me up.
I messed myself
Rhonda Sitnicow on Facebook. How can people get in touch with you, Brandon, if they need to?
Well, they can reach me on my email at bstevens@oneidanation.org, or I don't even know my Twitter. I don't use it that much.
That's okay. Email's fine. Everybody knows how to use email.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. We're out.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.